Welcome back to the Mixed Opinions podcast. I am your host, MixedByJocelin, and to my right is my co-host,
Proton.
And today we have a very special guest. But before we get into that, I'd just like to give a big shout out to Audio Movers for giving everyone a link that's watching this show to a free month of their plugin, Listen To. If you use the link below and you use code Mixed Opinions, you'll get a free month on that plugin. There you go, get my words out today. It's difficult, fucking hell. But yeah, our guest today is a top G in the game, and he's a big Dolby Atmos player. In fact, the man that taught me how to mix in Dolby himself. We have Curtis on the podcast today.
Hey,
what's going on, bro? What's going on? How you doing? Tuning in from LA.
You said what?
Tuning in from LA.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. It sounds like it's about to be some fun here.
Now, we appreciate you coming on, man. Can you see us okay in the camera?
Yeah, you're
a little cut off, but yeah.
You're like a little zoomed in, so I could see half of both of you.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll have to do. But yeah. So how's things going anyway? Comfy?
Yeah, good, man. Usual day. Busy day.
Nice. So sorry, go on.
I said, how about you guys?
Oh yeah, we're good, man. Obviously, it's the back end of the day for us. The day's just starting for you. But yeah, it's all good. Just been mixing, flying up here.
Have you been getting into been doing a lot of Atmos work since taking the course?
Yeah, bits and pieces. Actually, funny enough, the guy that just left that was helping us set up, I'm mixing his new project in Dolby at the moment. Which is fun, and the studio that we're in right now, which is the Cube, they have a Atmos room.
Yeah, they have an Atmos mixing room.
Yeah. So going to be making full use of that. So yeah, it's all kind of like weird. Yeah. Like ever since it happened, everything started like falling into place. If you know what I mean, like making it easy.
That's good. That's
get
good
the
to hear.
stuff
I always
done.
like to hear the stories of everyone after they leave the course and what their experience is like. Moving forward towards their career.
Well, before we really get into it, for those of you that don't know, how about you give everyone like a little bit of a brief on who you are, what you do, and how you got into the game?
Yeah. So I'm Curtis Circuit by. Some people call me Circuit. Some people call me Curtis. Ali calls me Kurt Dog. I respond to them all. I'm a mixing engineer. As you said, I do teach the Dolby Atmos course, help teach with that, with engineers and everything there. But I did start as a tracking engineer, pretty much probably like everybody else. And then kind of when I came to LA, I was already mixing back in the Bay Area where I'm from, Northern California.
Okay.
But it was like local stuff, some of the bigger acts and things, but I feel like it not being like a big music city, I was kind of like at the ceiling where I was at, and I just kind of wanted to go see how far I could push things.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, so I came down to LA, and then I was tracking down here for a little bit as well for Hitmaker for a little bit. And I'd already like met Ali when I came down. I just went to work with Hitmaker because I obviously needed to make some money.
Okay.
Once I got here, and I got blessed with that opportunity, so I took that. And that actually came by way of Ali as well. So eventually, after a run there for like 8 months or so, I decided to try to just go full mixing, and I came back to assist Ali, to try to start my journey there, which has led me up to here. I'm part of engineers as far as teaching the Dolby course.
A big part of engineers.
Yeah. So, for me, it's good to, like when I was coming up doing audio engineering, there wasn't a lot on YouTube and stuff. There was some stuff on message boards, like Future Producers, and it used to be called Gear Sluts. I think they changed the name since then.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, but there wasn't too much out there. So I like read books. I read Bobcat's books and things like that, Mike Sr., to try to get, some knowledge, and then also trial by error and things. So to be able to teach people and give somebody maybe an easier way of making their way and navigate through this business is really rewarding for me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, well, you taught me with the Dolby stuff, along with loads and loads of other people. So, and everyone's, you know, cracking on and, you know, paving a way. So you become like one of the forefront of the new techniques, the new sound almost.
Right.
And that's the vibe. So
yeah, I mean, it's good to be, you know, Atmos is really, you know, young as far as, you know, the push for it. So it's, you know, it's exciting to be a part of the front line and kind of trying to figure out the different methods and you know, ways to mix records.
So how long have you been out in LA for now?
I'm coming up on 5 years in January.
Oh, nice. Okay. So you've really got your teeth stuck in making it happen.
Yeah. So, like, as I mentioned, I'm from the Bay Area up in San Jose, California. And I was in junior college. I was making music. And I had a buddy who would send me, like, you know, artists that he was recording and stuff like that. He would send me their stuff to kind of put a light mix on because they just liked the way, you know, I didn't even know what mixing was. Like, they just liked the way the records were coming out that I was doing. So I started just doing stuff for him. And then he eventually, like a couple years later, took over a studio and they needed a head recording engineer. So he had brought me on. And that's kind of how I got my start as far as like in the studio. But then I built on that, built a clientele. I switched studios. I ended up working at a studio called Street Symphony in the Bay Area. And back then it was like, that was your last stop before moving to LA and trying to. Okay,
so you sort of completed everything out in the Bay, and you were like, right, there's only one way to go from here.
Right, and so while I was in the Bay, I had a couple buddies that I grew up making music with because we lived in the same area. You know, $1 Million Snare, you know, Nick over there. So him and I are best friends. We grew up together making music. And our other friend was Cyrus, Noise. And so he was already down here, Noise, working with Ali. And I would just kind of like, you know, still keep in touch with him while I was up there, just see how he was doing and everything.
Right. So so he was your connect in sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, fortunate in that sense. Also, you know, as they say, you know, you're waiting for that one moment. So your preparation is there. So that was my one moment. So I just took advantage of that situation to where I would go visit in LA just to go hang out. I met Ali. Actually, the first time I met Ali was in the studio, and he was mixing "This Is America."
Oh wow!
And then to kind of like, to kind of like, you know, go home.
That's a big record.
The song comes out, and then the video comes out, and then he wins a Grammy and things like that. Like,
and you were in the room whilst that was happening. That's crazy.
Yeah, and honestly, that was the first time I was in a big studio room, like a real room. Like my room in the Bay Area didn't have an SSL console in it. You know, we were working off like Slate Ravens and things like that. And it was, it all looks cool, but I've never really been in a room with a board before. So all of that was like super inspiring to, you know, try to achieve. So I had like pre-decided while I was in the moment, like, all right, I'm going to like save up as much money as I can so I can move to LA and just be around as much as I can.
I'm not going to lie, since going out there myself, for NAMM, when I got to meet with you guys in person, it's been at the very forefront of my mind, just thinking, you know what, I think it's just where it's all happening, and, you know, how can I figure a way out of, you know, getting out there and stuff, you know, because over here in London, we do our thing, do you know what I mean? But like, I don't know, it just seems so much bigger out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like for the stuff we do over here, it's a very closed market, whereas like in regards to like hip hop music and stuff like that, do you know what I mean? In the UK, it's a lot of it, we got like a very mixed palette. So a specialist engineer is like, you are a specialist, you're a go-to guy for like maybe a few people. And if like 20 people, 20 of the main guys probably use like one guy or two guys, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we had him on like...
Yeah, we had one of the main guys on
the main
our
guy,
show.
And he literally mixes
Everything, bro.
80% of
Pretty
all
much.
the UK rap music. So like, the pot's like kind of small.
Yeah,
do you know what I
definitely.
mean?
It's crabs in a
not that
bucket,
it's
bro.
not that it's not the similar out in LA, but do you know what I mean? I just feel like it's just a spot where if you can make it happen out there,
Yeah, definitely.
it
Yeah,
works. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say it's it's kind of similar here where there is the top tier of the handful of guys that are doing
Yeah,
all of the big stuff, right?
yeah.
But obviously you've done the right thing and got in with the right guys. Do you know what I mean? And worked hard and made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, definitely blessed to have been able to meet Ali, in the first place. That's one of those you've got to have some luck in this as well, right?
Yeah, of course.
But keep in mind, like I was already engineering, and I'm self-taught. I didn't go to school. I didn't do none of that.
Yeah.
And I was already in it for 15 years before I met Ali. So
Yeah.
I also feel like
You were prepared.
if you put in the time and you stay consistent and your drive is there, eventually an opportunity is going to make its way, make it to you, and you're just going to have to take advantage of it
100%.
and take that leap
That's
of faith.
it.
And for me, the leap of faith was like picking up and moving from Northern California to Southern California, and then just trying to figure it out when I got here.
100. Well, there's a point. You got to take the risks. Otherwise, you don't get the rewards.
It's true.
That's all it boils down to. So,
Right.
am I right in saying that you have over 20 billion streams credited to your name when it comes
I
to
do.
mixing?
Dope.
Yes,
That's
I
amazing,
do.
man. So,
That's sick.
Yeah.
what out of all of those, all of those records, all of those billions of streams, what's like one of the more memorable projects you worked on that comes to mind?
I mean, there's a bunch. Just like I said, being in the room and being around Ali, you're gonna fall into some opportunities. He's as you know, he's very big in the engineering community, and he always wants to see people win. And if you're putting in work and you're doing what you're supposed to do, he's always going to take care of you, and you're going to earn everything you do, but like you're going to see some looks that you wouldn't see if you didn't know him and you weren't putting in the work. So I appreciate everything he's ever done for me. But I mean, that's what they are. It's like, the biggest record on, my resume as far as streams and things like that go is probably The Box by Roddy Ricch.
What was that one of your first like properly credited records? Because I saw somewhere that when I was doing some research on you, that one of the first credits you got as a mixer was on a Roddy Ricch project.
Yeah. So on the album, so like I said, I had left, doing the tracking stuff, and I'd come to work with Ali, and there was no, he was cool with me. He didn't mind me being in the room. I wasn't weird or anything like that. So he was like, cool, come around, be around. But I went over there on my own. Like, I know I'm here. I'm not making any money. I'm here to learn. I'm here to, you know what I'm saying? So I was really like the fly on the wall, like watching everything, listening to everything, not asking too many questions, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. And then whenever there was a way to prove value, I took advantage of that and tried to, prove that I had value to add to the team.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, what a record to be one of the first.
So that album, basically the story is, which is what you probably have seen, is that was like the first album where I was taking on like a big part of the assistant responsibilities as far as like printing records and putting records on the SSL and making sure all the files match the references and just making sure everything was, perfect for Ali to just sit down, do his thing and
get
leave,
it
and
done.
he doesn't have to worry about anything. So I was obviously nervous just because, it felt like such a big moment. But I basically would show up early and I would leave late. So I showed up early one day and I had put a new mix on the board and I was waiting for Ali to get there. And I was like, man, I'm just going to like do a little save up and just do my own little mix. And originally the idea was like, if I can get a quick mix done and then just like hear what his version is after he does the mix and then just like
learn
can,
from
like,
the
give
AB.
myself notes. Yeah, so I was like, I'll just figure out how to give myself notes and like I'll just be getting better. But he ended up pulling up while I was like working on the drums. and I didn't even know he was there. He was sitting in the back we're at a American Studios, which is a Paramount studio.
Yeah.
And it's basically like you're in the control room, and then behind you there's a door, and then there's a little lounge right there. So if you have the door open, you can be sitting on a couch and you can see into the
and hear and everything. Yeah.
Room. So I'm in there. I got the mains, blasting. So like I couldn't tell if anybody walked in or not. I wasn't gonna hear it, So I'm listening to it, and I don't do all my mixes loud. I was just at that moment where I felt like I had the drums in a cool spot, and I just wanted to hear how they were hitting. So I got the mains full blast, and I'm just slapping this, and then I like turn down the volume, and I just hear, "Hey, those drums are smacking."
Oh shit!
And so I turn around, and it's Ali, and he was like, "Yeah, them drums sound good." And so, we ended up picking it up from there, and kind of like, I think that was a moment where like. He kind of started to take me under his wing to like, if he was doing something or had like a critique of some sort.
He said, like, this guy's got something, I'm going to nurture it.
Yeah. So that was a big moment for me. And that was on the Moonwalking record with Lil Durk.
That's dope.
So yeah, that's probably like my most memorable time. There was another project that Smino was doing at the time, which some of the songs have been released, but a lot of them haven't. But just like working with that whole team, like they're such cool guys, and that was just one of the funnest times. We worked on a whole project for like a month or so, and it was just like, it was like going to the studio. You were going to like camp or some shit, and it was just like getting good music done, but it was like a lot of fun.
Just vibes. Everyone's on the same wavelength sort of thing. I love that.
Right.
Sounds cool. That sounds like kind of like the vibe of sort of West Coast music. It sounds almost like even the engineers, the producers, all of it sounds very much from your area. I was going to ask, because you was involved in that record, would you say, and another record, which is actually a favorite of mine from last year that I didn't know you had an involvement on, was West Side Boogie's More Black Superheroes.
Yeah.
What would you say, how does it feel to be, because I know it's obviously all like California, West Coast, how does it feel to be a part of records like that actually mean stuff to the culture as well?
I mean, for me, it's huge because, I'm from Northern California, but my like real young childhood was the mid 90s. And so like Dr. Dre was like all of our heroes. Like me and Nick from $1 Million Snare, like we was all making beats, and like we didn't even know about mixing. We just knew that his drums was just hitting harder than everybody's shit. And so like, so it was like, I didn't even know I was going to be an engineer at that point. I just was a big Dre fan, and, making beats and creating music was like, I stopped playing video games and started doing beats and stuff because it was just way more fun. And I just loved doing it.
I mean,
I kind of fell into engineering because I knew I wanted to be in the studio every day, but I didn't know how to get there quickly. And I was being pressured to go to college and all this. And I just decided like, I'm gonna go work at a studio and figure it out.
Yeah. No, that sounds dope. I mean, the reason I ask is because it's good that you mentioned Dre, because it sounds like a lot of West Coast albums, like being from the UK, we know that sort of the South Atlanta and all that stuff have their own sort of sonics as well as New York. West Coast, I feel like there's this like smack that comes from like the drums, and then there's this width as well, and it's prominent in some of the tracks of like the More Black Superheroes album. And then I didn't really think of it much, but when you do listen to the mixes of like, I don't know, maybe a Dom Kennedy project and stuff like that, it might not be the most sort of punchy through the middle, but it's booming, if that makes sense. Would you say that you stay true to the West Coast sound when it comes to mixing?
Yeah, I do. And I think a big reason is because of Ali, and he comes from the Dre tree, and then he's, he taught, like I said, I'd never even seen an SSL board in person until I met him. So it was like, he started to have me route mixes and things like that through there. Like there was a lot to learn to like make sure everything was right when he was sitting down to mix.
And I mean,
and then seeing the saturation and how the board actually is coloring the sound, or you're working on board channels where the left rights, even though they come up even, maybe they're 0.1 off, which gives like a tiny bit of width to something. And I think because of that, like all the records you have mentioned were done on SSL 4000 G+, and not only that, it was Dre's old board. So
Yeah.
Are you
For
still mixing on a board, or are you more in the box now?
I do both, just, depending on room availability.
Okay, yeah.
I usually will always try to get the mix run through the board somehow. So there has been times where I think actually even with the Boogie album, I had started mixing a lot of those in the box and putting, getting the mix as far as I can in the
Yeah.
box. And then when the studio room opened up, going in and just routing through,
Yeah.
certain amount of channels to try to get that extra little saturation and separation from things, and then printing my stems out through there to do any final edits.
Would you
So yeah, it's definitely like the SSL is a big part of my sound.
Amazing. One of the other techniques that Ali has been he's documented that he does and is kind of known for is mixing in mono. Is that something that you've picked up on and do yourself, or?
Definitely. And yeah, I learned it from Ali. I did not. I used to check mixes in mono back in Northern California, but I was really just checking to make sure that there was no phase cancellation. I wasn't really
yeah.
What you get taught to use mono for, basically.
Right. And when I first met Ali in that session for the This Is America, when I walked in, he was actually working on the Aventone in mono. And so, and I think actually at that studio they had an Oratone. I'm on Aventones now, but
Have you
they
had
had
them
an
next
actual
to each other? The Oratone and Aventone, are they that different?
I have. They're very similar. I will say for the Aventone, to get the frequency response to be consistent, you got to put in 200 to 240 hours of stuff playing through there before before the
I need to, when I get home, I need to turn my fucking cube on then and get play, because I've definitely not that much playtime out of it.
I'm telling you, when I got my first Aventone, because I couldn't get Oratones anymore, I just left it on for 3-4 days straight, just blasting.
Okay, when I get home, I'm gonna turn it on there, because I've had mine for a year or so, maybe longer.
Probably a little bit longer.
And I've definitely not played enough music. I've definitely not played enough music for it. I've tried the mixing in mono, but I think I think it's something I'd need to sit down with someone.
He's got a short attention span, so. It's just, that's more so what it is. He's tried to dress it up as something else. I know him. He's got a short attention span. Are you a fan of summon mixers?
I used to actually in the Bay. I used to have an SSL Sigma, which was my summer. I used it as a summer.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I think anything that's going to give you a little bit of I wouldn't even call it an edge. It's more of your fingerprint, what do you when you're mixing a record? It's like you guys were saying, the West Coast records have a certain sound, East Coast records have a certain sound. What sound did you fall in love with, as you became an engineer from a music fan?
Yeah. Unfortunately, not to cuss off our side of the industry a lot, but all the music that we grew up listening to, like UK rap and grime, the mixes were all shit.
Some of them were really good.
Were shit.
That's why it's called grime, man.
Hey, this is crazy. This is crazy. No, but right, when you're saying you were using Dre's actual board, you meant you was using the actual board that was in the studio, right?
Right. Yeah. So we have Ali has a cut down version of it, and it's also the same board that he mixed to Pimp a Butterfly on as well.
Oh,
so
can't lie, I've actually been in the room and
you put your fingers on that board.
I touched the desk.
You put your fingers on that board.
Hey, he was in there fingering with our boards, man. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I was very lucky, and Ali said that I could come and have a tour, and it was cool, of the whole engineers complex. I felt very blessed. It was a cool day.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, as far as as like I said, whatever mixes you hear, it didn't even have to be what you grew up to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Now that you're engineering, what records do you listen to that really catch your ear? They could be modern. They don't have to be old records,
Yeah.
like basically like if I hear a record, like I remember when Roy Woods put out like his first album, and I like didn't even know who he was, and I'm pretty sure I listened to that album all the way through the first time just because it sounded amazing.
It does. So the vocals open. I mean, it's beautiful sounding album.
And all the low end is real punchy, but it still hits like super hard. And I think at the time when that album came out, like I think it was just better than everything that dropped, like just sonically.
No, you know what? I hear that. We were getting like a lot of murky low, like not that I don't like it, but like a more of a, especially out of that camp as well, for being honest, it was more like lo-fi sounding stripped back stuff. This Roy Wood stuff wasn't afraid to have the snare smacking you in your face, and then his vocals were pretty bright and open, and there was width and there was some dynamics. It kind of felt like, even though I was playing it off of Spotify and Apple Music, like I was playing it off of vinyl. It had an edge to it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, so I think when you hear songs like or albums or projects or whatever that kind of like the sonics pull you into the record, like those are the ones where I try to listen and think like why do I like this mix so much? You know what I'm saying? And then you kind of start to pick it apart, not to like find the flaws, because the flaws are a part of why it sounds so good to you, right?
Agree.
So you got to figure out why, and then when you get a record that may be in the same ballpark or that you want to apply the same sonics to, you're like, you've already figured it out in your head, and then you're just going in and figuring out how to do it in real time.
100%. So coming off that topic a little bit, into a whole new realm of mixing, we sort of like briefly touched on it earlier, but you've dived head first into Dolby Atmos and are doing like loads of projects with it, as we've spoken about. Just out of interest, like where do you feel like, because it's so early days still, and like, you know, not most people haven't adopted you know, or even heard it yet, like a lot of people haven't even listened to it yet. Where do you feel like it's gonna go, and like the end result of it? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think it's here to stay? Do you think that the technology's still got some growth, sort of thing?
It's early, so there's definitely going to be some sort of growth. I don't know if it's necessarily in the technology itself, as to opposed to trying to market it to everyday listeners. I think a big part of that is, you know, there's car companies that are starting to incorporate Dolby Atmos into the new cars coming out, which I think will help because, you know, people are driving. In LA, you're in traffic, so
for real.
You've got a lot of time. So I feel like in that sense, I think it's more figuring out how to make it, you know, an everyday thing. I think, you know, like when we had surround and stuff, it's like it works for movies and things like that. And I think the technology is great. We got to figure out how to relate it to the regular public.
Have you had a chance to listen to any of those like one box speakers that like scan your room and emulate it?
So I haven't done it personally. I know a couple of people that, you know, are friends of mine that are engineers that swear by all of the software that, you know, is reading your room and trying to help balance you out and all of that stuff. And I think it's great. Like especially from a listening standpoint, I feel like I'm a little weary to use that from a mixing standpoint. But mainly because I have access to the rooms
full room. But from like a consumer point of view, like you'll be able to get like this one speaker system, throw it at the front of your TV, scans your room, and then you can like experience like a whole new listening experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things are gonna seem gimmicky at the moment. I feel like because it's so new, there's like the one cool consumer product. I don't think it's been made yet.
No,
I don't think it's been made yet, personally.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I think it would be a sort of headphone experience.
The car is going to help. I think the car is going to help a lot. Just because
I actually got to sit in a car and listen to. It was at the
Abbey Road,
at Dolby Atmos HQ in Soho Square. They went to an event and
they had the car just parked outside.
Yeah, they had the car parked and you can go and sit. I think we listened to Craftworks 3D, which sounded crazy.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a super cool experience. But I worry a little bit, like, and we touched on it in another episode, like driving with it, like maybe it might be a distraction. Don't you think? Like,
No, I hear you on that. I was gonna say I listened to it in a couple of different cars, and try to sit in different positions. Like if you were a passenger, if you were in the back seat, or like whatever. And depending on like where you're sitting and how the mix was done, like it's a whole different experience everywhere.
Yeah, no, the front, from the back to the front was way different, like a way different experience. Everything sounded way more reverby in the back because you could hear all the tails much closer to your head.
Okay.
But like when you're at the front, it sounded nice. But I worry, like, you'll be driving, taking a turn, and then suddenly like a vocal like goes shoo by the back of your head, and you're like, what the fuck? You crashed, you know what I mean? Like,
It's possible, anything, bro.
That's crazy.
I mean,
That'll be, that's not gonna look good on the headlines.
That might be something to watch for. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I, God forbid it happens. I hope it doesn't. Touch wood. You know what I mean?
Not.
But yeah,
right. But yeah, I mean, I think like for me, I looked at the opportunity to get into Atmos as like there was no downside. So it's like
For real?
I get into it and say it goes away, like no harm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If anything, I just got more knowledge. So it's like,
and it just raises the ceiling, for us as not just as engineers to like expand our skill sets, but also to expand our business and our and our services and our income,
And our client base as well.
Client base.
Yeah.
right. And then if it does become, as it did, it's already grown, exponentially. But when it does become big and say it does become the norm, like you don't want to be left behind. You know what I'm saying? So it's
I feel like it's inevitable that it will become the norm. I'm not gonna lie, because it does. It's like we went from mono to stereo, and now it's like what is that next development? Do you know what I mean? Like it has to go somewhere. Do you know what I mean? As humans, we're constantly pushing for more.
Like I said, I don't think the product is here yet.
You don't reckon it's
I don't think it's here yet. I don't.
I mean, the mixes sound brilliant though.
It could be that the product is here and it's just not perfected. Like
Possibly.
some of the headphone stuff,
I was gonna say, I think,
like you could hear the spatial stuff, but it's like it could probably be emulated maybe a little bit better, or
I think you've seen those headphones that are apparently supposed to save New York, the Dyson ones with the filter and stuff like that.
No.
So they got this.
I haven't seen them.
There's these headphones.
Yeah, they're
right?
crazy.
Dyson have made them. They're like over ears like Beats, and then they got like a face mask. And it like a Bane mask, literally like
It
Bane
filters
from Batman,
the
bro.
air for
Filters
you.
the air, so any air that comes in through the ear cups have like sort of coils. You can put like smoke through it and stuff. If it comes out of the mouth, it means it's not working properly. If it's trapped in the mouth, you're good. And apparently those actually work. But I think the idea of sort of putting something on your head, Atmos, it could get to that space maybe. Like maybe like a Robocop
and
helmet.
Apple with the VR headset,
the VR glasses.
You know what I'm saying?
I think it will be like a whole Halo helmet type thing, like a Master Chief helmet.
But
you put it on.
I think the thing that would change the most is when Spotify finally embed it into their platform.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like, I don't know if you know anything about that, being so deep in the game like you are, but it doesn't sit. I'm not hearing any news about it.
No, I mean, I think eventually, Atmos is going to get to a point to where they have to conform, right?
Yeah, surely.
I don't know when that will happen, but I mean, in my mind, that's the only outcome, is that they're going to have to accommodate it at some point.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you on the VR aspect, and also, like during COVID when they were doing like the VR concerts and stuff. If you have Atmos involved with VR concerts, like
that's like a whole elevation.
True,
that's a whole elevation.
Right.
True.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
I mean, there's stuff, there's stuff that could happen. I agree with you there. Technology wise, they're probably going to come out with better products that'll be easier to consume the content from just an average consumer and not like a music enthusiast.
Yeah,
and
I would think so.
When that happens, that's when that shift is going to start.
Some of those setups are ridiculous. Like I said it on the last episode, right? One of my cousins, one of my family members, he was like looking at a rig in his house. It's like 15 grand, bro, for this Atmos setup.
I think, do you know what? I think that's normal prices, bro.
That's ridiculous, bro.
You know, you got to
right.
you got to be putting like 10 speakers in your room, bro.
You can't even get. You can't. See, England's different. You can't even get like an 18-year-old kid to buy a set of KRKs nowadays. So to get the Atmos set is hard. Like, it's a struggle, bro.
Yeah, but let them struggle and just be the guys that do it. Do you know what I mean? And the guys that win. Like, take the opportunity.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's how you stay ahead of the game.
We're gonna get into a quick fire round. Just fire some questions at you. Not many in this one, to be fair. Analog or digital mixing console?
As far as like choosing between the two, definitely analog.
LA2A or 1176?
1176.
I feel like in America, I feel like that's the thing.
Yeah, but I'm 1176. I can't lie.
The reason why 1176 is that I have more control.
I
so
agree.
Like if I
over attack and release times,
What? Which one though? Just going. Like
which hardware? 1176.
Which one are you grabbing for? The Bluey?
The black?
No, I like the Blackie. When you're talking about the real hardware, I like the Blackie. One. If you're talking about the plugin and on vocals with the plugin, I like the Bluey more often than not.
Okay, it's kind of a bit. I find that one a bit brighter. I don't know.
It's definitely more sort of harmonics being compressed. I feel like.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it is. I think for me in the digital realm, like when you're using a plug-in version of it, like I like the brightness of the Bluey in there. Yeah. But in the analog realm, I like the Blackie for sure.
Fair enough.
Nice.
Maggie cues or Potec style tubey cues?
Ooh, that's tough. I'm gonna say in reality, like it depends on what I'm mixing. Like as far as like whether it's bass.
One's got to go.
Then I gotta go with the Potec only because I can use it on more. I use it for more applications.
Yeah, I think I'm with that.
I was gonna say I would use the Potec on any part of my mix. I can find a use for it. With the mags, I'm more trying to get that air out of it.
I mean, you could put the Potec on the drum and the kick and get it cutting out. Do you know what I mean? So.
Fair play. Metal or cloth pop filters?
Metal.
Metal. Why is that? Because you said you used to track a lot, right?
Because you don't have to clean them.
Yeah. Yep.
You don't get some dusty ass smell at the end of the session.
I could sanitize that bitch right after. That's why. Man.
That's 100% the only reason why anyone's picking metal.
You don't think they sound horrible though? I don't know, man.
Yeah, but fuck that, bro.
I mean, you can still get a good sound. Like, you know what I'm saying? You as the engineer. My first one was like a cloth one. And if I would have showed you the pieces of food and shit that were stuck to that thing,
bro, I've had it at Relentless, and I'm like, I've taken it off, and I've like been close to my face.
Smell it from like 5 inches
I'm like,
away,
what the fuck? I'm throwing that in a bin straight away. Like that's dirty, bro. Bare man been on it all day. Like fuck that.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
And the last one was a relaxed one. In the studio, sushi or pizza?
Pizza for sure.
Pizza.
I'm not a big fish eater, so like I'll eat. I like shrimp. I like lobster.
Okay.
I'm just not a big fish eater. As far as like sushi, I'm like the fake sushi, like tempura and stuff. But pizza, I'll definitely go for pizza.
But not like the rolls and stuff. I feel you, but I don't know. Have you noticed like sushi's becoming so popular in the studio nowadays? I know.
Yeah, but again, who's mocking it like that? Who's really bringing in bare fish into the studio and just smelling it out?
Okay. Well, so the studio
out here, since I've been in LA for the last 5 years, sushi is a big part of like studio.
It's a big studio food now. I've noticed that in the past 3 or 4 years, it's sushi. That's all that's going down, bro. People coming in with poke bowls. It's crazy.
Bro, I'm lactose intolerant. Pizza every day, bro. Still.
I mean, I eat the pizza, but I also have to go like do a workout set or something because. You know, we just
yeah. We straight
I feel you.
I mean, to be fair, you're in good shape for an engineer, man. We're like we're on the bigger side of it.
I'm definitely just sitting behind the console.
I do the
Uber Eats on this side.
I find like a 20 or like a 10 to 20 minute window, and I go do like a bunch of push-ups and a bunch of things like that.
Swear down.
You just gotta. I don't want to be like some, big bodybuilder guy. I just want to feel like I'm doing something. You know
I hear that.
And
I feel like if someone puts their drink near your mixer, you can just move away from the desk.
yeah.
I do the total wrong thing, man. I go to the gym in the morning, I lift stupid heavy weights, and then I just sit for 10 hours and let my whole body just seize up. And then I think, why can't I move later in the day? And I'm like, obviously.
Yeah, you gotta keep moving around, man.
I know.
We've been over here. We've got multiple buildings, so I'll just find a reason to go walk to these other buildings. So that
I know. I see that Ali's trying to buy up the whole bloody complex. He's trying to get all the spots, man. He's got it going over there. That's crazy.
Yeah. He'll have a compound.
Yeah, for real. So, before we wrap up, just one last. Well, it's not really a question, but. What would your advice be to all of the young guys getting into the game that are, trying to like make their way in the industry and like, put a mark out there?
I think there's a lot of different pieces of advice that you could probably give. I would say for me, the biggest thing is to just not quit. Like I told you guys, I was doing this for 15 years before I caught a break. You know what I'm saying? So, and you talk about like being worried about failure or, being successful, like all that means is that whoever failed quit. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
At some point, you're going to be successful if you stick to it. So
Facts.
I would just say stick to it. There's obviously, other things you could learn along the way, but as long as you stick to it and stay true to trying to get to that goal, regardless of how low the lows are, like the highs get really high also. You know what I'm saying? So I would just say, don't give up.
Amazing, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm going to put all of Curtis's links down below, his Instagram, some mixes that he's done, so you can check that out. And yeah, this has been the Mixed Opinions podcast. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe and do all of the things on Spotify and Apple Music that you need to do. And we'll catch you in the next one. Safe.
Peace.